Hello and welcome. This is Lights Out, and away we go with the episode. With a Formula One podcast for fans and by fans. I'm Will, and as I look across the digital garage, as always, I'm joined by my co-driver, shall I say my co-host, Sam. Hello, Sam. How are you?
Hello, Will. Hello, listeners. I'm very well, thank you. How are you? How was your weekend?
It was very good. I've been off on leave the last week, so I was with my family. We went lots of nice walks up in the northwest and the surrounding area. And then it was my grandpa's 90th birthday yesterday, so nice celebration for him. So yeah, it's very good. How about you? How was your weekend?
That sounds very good. Many happy returns. My weekend was good. Yeah, so I went to my friend. My friend runs a beer festival every year, and we had that on Saturday. So yeah, Saturday I was drinking a lot, and then
Nice.
Sunday was a bit of a struggle. And my voice is still not quite right now. Yeah, no, but it was really nice weekend. And then yeah, Sunday was primarily recovering from Saturday, spending time with my daughter, watching the race,
Nice.
sleeping in patches throughout the day. And that was it, really. Yeah, it was very nice.
That sounds a very good recovery, just what you need on a hangover.
Yeah, ideal. It was good.
And was your daughter very understanding of your hangover?
She was. Well, she yeah. I've mentioned before, I think, on the pod. I'm not a massive drinker, but I feel like a few times now on the podcast I've turned up a bit hungover and referenced the fact that I've had my daughter on the day after a big night or a big day. So no, she was really good yesterday. Although I took her out for a walk in the afternoon, and she's she's like 13 months now, and she's quite a chunky baby. So carrying her up the hill generally is quite difficult. But with a massive hangover, I got halfway up, and I did think to myself, this was a mistake. But we
She had
made
to carry you up the hill.
Yeah. But no, we made it. She was good. She was good yesterday.
Very good. And yes, so we had the Hungary Garo ring. Halfway through the season, 11 races in. What a season we're having. Was it a good race before I come to to ask you who won the race?
Not really, no. I mean, it had lots of stuff in it that seems to be quite traditional for this season now. So, spoiler alert, Max Verstappen won.
No.
Yeah, fastest driver and the fastest car joke insert here.
Nice.
Yeah, so he scampered off into the distance as per. Ferrari made some really interesting decisions and had some interesting times in the pit stops. And everyone else was just scrapping over the rest of the points, basically. And that feels like what's happened every race for the last little while now. So, no, it wasn't the best. There have been some good ones at the Hungarian Ring previously, but this wasn't really one of them. It's a shame because qualifying really promised quite a lot.
Yeah.
Because we saw a really interesting kind of slightly mixed up order. So Max didn't end up on pole, Lewis Hamilton did, which was really good, really exciting. I was absolutely buzzing after that. Bear in mind, I had quite a lot of beer by that point, so I would have been buzzing anyway, but it definitely added something. And then, yeah, we had both Alfa Romeos in the top 10. George Russell got knocked out in Q1. It was a lot of like interesting stuff happening in qualifying. I thought it looked like it might be quite a good race, but didn't quite pan out like that, unfortunately.
Yeah. We'll come on to Lewis's pole in a bit, but firstly, should we start with Red Bull then? Obviously, Max has won another race, 9th win of the season for him, 11 wins out of 11 so far this season, but they've also gone on a winning streak of winning the last 12 Formula One races, breaking the 35-year-old record held by McLaren since Prost, Senna, and Ron Dennis and that amazing red and white McLaren to now have 12 consecutive race wins. What do you make of that as a feat of it's quite surprising, really. I suppose I was going to say that we've had the Mercedes dominance era, we've had Ferrari dominance eras, we've had previous Red Bull dominance eras, but this is actually the first time that record has been broken. What do you make of that record falling this weekend? Yeah,
it is an amazing achievement. I mean, those of us that kind of have a soft spot for McLaren and particularly that car and those drivers, we're a bit disappointed that that record's now gone. But yeah, I mean, fair play to Red Bull. I mean, we've talked all season about what a great job they've done. They've obviously built a brilliant car. They've got a brilliant driver and a pretty good one next to him in general. Yeah, it's an amazing achievement. They'll probably, I fancy them to probably extend that record quite a bit, actually, this season. It was close this weekend. It did look like there was some jeopardy, but when Max ends up winning the race by 33 seconds, they probably had quite a bit of pace in the pocket. I mean, interestingly, this weekend, they went slightly different route. So on previous weekends, we've seen them be super fast in qualifying, and then we've seen the pack slightly close up a little bit during the race. Never enough to make it interesting, but there's been a bit of a gap. sort of that's shrunk during race trim or when the cars are in race trim. But this weekend they went the other way, so their qualifying setup was or they generally set the car up more for the race than for qualifying. So yeah, or they gave us a bit of false hope, really, thinking everyone's like caught them up a bit, and then as it turned out, when the race started, Max drove off into the distance as per. But yeah, amazing achievement. They've done a great job. I'm sure Adrian Newey somewhere smoking a fat cigar with his feet up, having a lovely old time. He should be. If he's not, he definitely should be. Yeah, it's kind of everybody's already thinking about 2024 now. I mean, it's the team principals when they're asked about development and stuff. Now they've all, particularly the big teams that were hoping they'd be in the championship fight, Alain, Mercedes, and Ferrari, are all thinking about 2024 already now. So tells you we need to know really about what a good job Red Bull have done.
Yeah, and even in this weekend, they brought their sort of first probably big upgrade. And it's still very innovative. It's sort of leading the pack and doing something different with the side pods that we've not really seen. Though, I mean, I did enjoy all the jokes saying where was the upgrade going to be them going to no side pods just to sort of show Mercedes that it could work. But yeah, I think you're right. I think they're sort of really at the pinnacle of the sport at the moment, aren't they? Sort of a gap ahead of everyone. And yeah, it was interesting, like say, how they did sort of sacrifice Saturday sort of pace for Sunday, and it obviously paid off with I think the 34-second gap between him and Norris was the largest gap we've had all season. And I think like everyone thought, oh, here we go, the pack is suddenly starting to bunch up again. And then you have the winner win. And I think for Max, he only had to do two things. The first was pass Lewis, which he did before he gets to the first corner, and the second one was cross the line, and that was his race done. Yeah. And Checo, I mean, we should just very briefly cover on him.
He made it to Q3.
Yeah.
That's progress. First time since Miami, apparently.
Wow.
Hulkenberg made it, though, so Hulkenberg still has got to Q3 more times than Checo this season.
Wow.
He keeps that record.
Also, Checo did only get to 9th, I think, in qualifying, so even not a strong performance there. Still, if I was still Red Bull, I still wouldn't be particularly happy. But I think probably the best thing that happened the best thing, but the funniest thing that happened with Checo was it on Friday practice, first session one?
Yeah.
Danny Ricciardo is outgoing, and the commentator says, "Welcome back, Danny Ricciardo." And literally within seconds, Perez properly bins it into the wall.
Yeah.
And in the sort of the scheme of things, probably not a major moment in sort of the thinking of Red Bull, but for your own reputation at that first sort of moment of your potential successor being on the grid, and you absolutely bin it. Not very good. I think he was the subject of a lot of memes and jokes on Friday.
He was. Yeah, it was. I mean, he had an average qualifying, and then he had a pretty good race, to be fair. I think getting up to third from where he was a good effort on a track that's not easy to overtake on. And he put a few nice moves on. He put a nice move on Piastri, and there's a lot of chat about that, but I actually think he pushed Piastri off a little bit.
I saw that.
I felt a bit bad for Piastri, actually. We'll probably talk about him in a minute when we talk about McLaren in general. But yeah, he did do well to get back up to third, and I would say he's done enough probably the last couple of races to sort of stove off any concerns about losing his seat, particularly with Ricciardo returning. So yeah, he's got a summer break to think about next steps really for him, and hopefully he can find a way to just be a little bit more consistent, particularly on a Saturday, because that does seem to be his downfall at the moment. But as long as the Red Bull is as fast as it is in race trim, like it was yesterday, he could probably start anywhere really from second down to 15th and make it to the podium really. So yeah, there's not a huge amount of risk, let's say, in Red Bull holding on to him as their second driver.
Yeah, it's interesting because if Max had been in Checo's qualifying position, we probably would have expected Max to go on to win the race. Whereas I don't think we see Checo pulling out a 34-second gap to McLaren.
No.
But then Red Bull, if they've got one driver that can do it, they don't need two really. But yeah, I suppose that's another weekend in the Red Bull world. Business as usual for them, right? And well done on breaking a record. Fair play to them. And like I say, I think that record could go on for quite a while. I think the next record that's in sort of sight is, I think if Max wins the next race, he could be. I think if he wins the next race or so, no, if he wins the next two races, if he wins the next couple of races, he can match Vettel's record of consecutive race wins. And that will, he'd match it at the Dutch Grand Prix, which will be a nice fan event for him. And then he could break it at Monza at the start of September. So yeah, that could be pretty. Yeah, I feel that will happen.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
I also saw a good meme at the weekend saying there should be the podium should be changed. You should have a podium just from us, like, basically just a podium just for Max saying, well done, you won the race. And then the top three should actually be second, third, and fourth place, because that's obviously more of a contest.
Yeah, that would be quite fitting this season, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. But I suppose, as we've alluded to, we should touch on the amazing performance by Lewis on Saturday to qualify 0.003 of a second ahead of Verstappen. I think for you and I, as massive Lewis fans, but also for the sport, I think that could be one of the moments of the season, just to see him pull that lap sort of out of nowhere. He had a pretty terrible Friday, and he seemed pretty pissed off on Friday with the car. But yeah, incredible to get pole, and I think you could tell it meant a lot to him as well. He obviously looked very emotional, and I think obviously been working quite hard to get back to sort of being at the very front. What did you make of that moment? Obviously, you were saying you were a few pints deep, but
I was. Yeah, it was really good, really exciting. So I wasn't watching qualifying, but I was following it online on my phone. It was really exciting. I mean, I think qualifying in general seemed like it was really exciting. I did watch the highlights of it Saturday night when I got back very, very late. I do remember doing that, so I clearly was in a relatively all right state by the time I got back to the hotel. Yeah, it was really good. Qualifying in general was really exciting, particularly the shootout. The lap from Lewis was really special, I think. Like, he actually had quite a poor last sector, so he was a good 10th and a half up on Max after the first two sectors, and then he had a slight issue in the second to last corner where he lost the back end a little bit and it stepped out, so he lost a bit of time there. But either way, to finish qualify ahead of a Red Bull this season, for anybody to do it, is a really massive feat, to be honest. And in a Mercedes that probably is like the third fastest car at the moment on pure pace, it's a really good effort. I mean, he is a bit of a specialist in Hungary, so he's now broken. Speaking of records, he's broken the record for the most pole positions at one track. I think he's got it at Hungary 9 times now. Is it? Gosh, imagine that is unreal. 9 times he's been on pole for Hungary. Pretty special. And he obviously broke his own kind of qualifying P1 record. Was now on 104. The previous record was 103, held by himself. Just a really amazing moment, amazing lap. You can tell it mattered to Max as well, because he was fuming leaving the press pen afterwards. He was like not happy at all, and then obviously goes and puts in a brilliant performance in the race as per usual. But it's good. This is what I mean. We said this at the start of the season. The only thing that worries Max, the only thing that worries Red Bull, is Lewis Hamilton in a car that can compete, basically. And on Saturday, we got a bit of that. So, it's good. Really good lap. Really exciting moment. Shame it didn't really materialise into anything fun on race day, but there we go. Well, you can't have everything, I suppose. And it was good. What did you make of it?
Yes, very similar to you, really. I think it showed the GOAT and how good he was to be at the front again. And like you say, I think Max was very concerned, and obviously Max has not had many good race starts this season. And I think Max actually plays a blinder in that first one, in the positioning, and sort of almost be by the end of the straight, and where he positions the car going into the first corner to sort of make Lewis in a difficult position defending. You kind of forget that he was second and Lewis is first going into on the grid. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it was an amazing moment. It's something that you and I have been waiting for a long time, to see Lewis back on fine form and just being at the very front of the grid. And I think for Formula 1 fans, I think a lot of people were even the not even Lewis Hamilton fans could spot that it was a really big moment, because no one saw it coming. But also, I think it then set up the prospect of there being a real battle at the front of the grid, and I think there were lots of sort of jokes about them crashing into each other. But I think there's probably would have been a big thing for both drivers preparing for that, because I think there's a lot of tension and I think there's a lot of history between them, and I think we really see that whenever they come up close to each other racing. Yeah. So I think that psychologically for them, I think they both would have been quite a different space a usual Sunday preparing for that first couple of laps. Obviously Lewis lost the position, which is a bit of a shame. But he still got pole, and by 0.003 of a second, I think is just amazing. Is so close that it would really annoy Max. Think that he could have done it. I also think it's interesting that Lewis and Charles are the only two drivers to get a pole that's not a Red Bull this season, which I think, in probably you and I opinions, is a reflection of the talent of. They're probably the next two. That they are probably the best two drivers alongside Max on the grid. So it's nice to see them show that. But Yeah, shame he couldn't convert it into a win, but I think I think that will be coming, and I think Lewis is going to be very emotional. I think when he gets that next win, because I think he's just been through hell over the last 2 seasons to get there.
Yep, definitely. No, it should be good. What do you make of Mercedes weekend more generally? I mean, I guess they got solid points. Russell did a really good job putting it up from where did he start?
18th, yeah, 18th to
6th, I think.
Yeah,
7th, 6th or 7th. Yeah, he had a really strong race in the end. And yeah, Lewis picked up solid points. I mean, he beat one of the McLarens. That's a pretty good effort, and lost out to obviously both Red Bulls and Norris, who had a really good race as well. So yeah, I would say Mercedes are probably still favourites to finish second in the championship. I do think they'll develop the car a bit more, and they do have the best driver lineup for my money. So yeah, a relatively solid weekend. Yeah, it's a bit of a shame that the kind of promise from Saturday wasn't necessarily delivered in the form of race pace on Sunday, but yeah, still pretty solid points for them, I suppose.
Yeah, I think and it's interesting with the Mercedes because they seem to sort of really seem to fluctuate over the weekend because they had quite mixed fortunes on Friday. I think they were 1 minute quite quick, the next minute they were quite near the back of the grid. And then obviously you got one on pole and then one in 18th. I mean, the 18th in qualifying was more of a mistake by the team for putting him out too late, and then some cheeky behaviour from Norris sort of cutting through the field to then jump the queue as they're approaching the final corner. I think that threw George. Yeah. And George was quite honest saying, it's not unsporting to do that. He's allowed to do that. But I think he was just annoyed that he was at the cost of it, and he wasn't more alert to the potential risk of that happening, and then sort of jeopardising the lap. And then obviously, and like George, we've seen this a couple of times this season. George doesn't cope very well when Lewis is doing incredibly well, and he's like struggling behind. I think he was quite miffed, and he would have been miffed seeing Lewis get a pole and him being 18th. But then he recovered. He recovered it back on Sunday. So yeah, I think it's a good one. And like I say, we're just going to just see this car is just going to get slightly better, and it seems to be more consistent and reliable than in performance than the previous version of this car. So that's promising. But yeah, I think George is now is slowly climbing up the constructor championship, the driver championship. Sorry, and I think it won't be long before the both of them are ahead of Alonso, because Alonso is, we're not planning to go much in detail in Aston, but again, they're still quite anonymous, aren't they? And the note that early sort of season form has completely disappeared. So it wouldn't surprise me if the top three of the championship finished Max, Lewis, George.
Yeah, it's definitely
maybe Checo.
Checo will be in the mix. I do think both Mercedes drivers will probably finish above Alonso now. Yeah, they're definitely moving. They're moving up there, aren't they? And I think I don't know what Hamilton's gap is now to Russell. It's quite big though. It's in the 40s somewhere. So yeah, I think there's still a way to go. But obviously, we're only halfway through the season. A lot can happen, or it takes a couple of DNFs for one or the other, and stuff starts to change. But no, this is it. This is what we said at the start. They're both really quick, really consistent drivers. So even in a car like Mercedes, that's probably the third quickest on the grid. Obviously, McLaren are probably second now, but they're coming from much further back. They've got a long way to go to catch Mercedes. They're a long way off them. So 100 and something points. So yeah, no, it was a pretty good weekend for Mercedes. I think they'll be happy with their points haul, but yeah, they'll be thinking about what they can do to try and extract a bit more from a race weekend, and how they're going to catch up to McLaren, who yet again, it's another kind of customer team that are doing a better job and delivering a faster package than they are. So lots of them to consider. Should we talk a bit about McLaren, because they had a brilliant weekend?
I was going to say McLaren, really good weekend. I mean, they've sort of lived up to the performance they showed 2 weeks ago at Silverstone. And I suppose what's really good for them is that Silverstone and Hungary are two very different circuits, and they've shown performance on both of them. And I think they were surprised at how quick they were this weekend. But consecutive second places for Lando Norris is a really good achievement to capitalise on that, and for him as well. I think he's massively shooting up the driver standings as well. And Piastri, like I say, he was in, he qualified well as well, and unfortunate not to get on the podium. The only thing before handing over to you to get your view, the thing I did say, Lando Norris could have almost got Latifi for his breaking of Max's trophy with his champagne. I think that was going around. That clip was going around a lot on Sunday evening. And I think that's quite funny that that was one of the main talking points, was him breaking a trophy that apparently costs €600,000 to make and take 3 months to build. So almost Latifi, but also quite funny because it is a good celebration when he smashes the bottle and then it shoots all the champagne out. I do quite like that.
Yeah. It's a good signature move, but not when it comes at the cost of the guy who's won the race's trophy.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if Max found it funny or pissed. I think if it's anyone that's like, if it was Lewis doing that to him, I think he's raging. But I think he's all right. But yeah, what did you make of McLaren's weekend? I know you've got views on Piastri's weekend as well.
Yeah, so they had a really strong weekend, really good pace again. They were quick all through the weekend actually, and as you say, because it's a very different circuit to Silverstone. The fact that they've been really fast at both is a good sign for them. So McLaren fans should be very happy. Norris had a really good race. I think, I don't know if I've necessarily underrated him, but I don't think I'd quite grasped how good his tyre management was. I always knew he was quick, but like there's something about being able to drive quickly without totally burning through your tyres in terms of racecraft that really separates the greats from, particularly the kind of modern Formula One, from fast drivers that can't do that. And like Checo's a really good example of someone who's like, he can drive really quickly, but for nowhere near as long as Max can because he can't manage his tyres in the same way. And Norris did a really good job yesterday. I was quite sort of surprised at the advantage he had over Checo, and that was all because he managed his tyres really well, whereas Piastri really struggled with that. So yeah, really strong weekend. I was a bit annoyed with McLaren, to be honest, in the first stint. I definitely have a soft spot for Piastri. I just love how he like conducts himself. He's just such a like chill guy. Like it just gives me Kimi vibes. I talked about that before. He's just like Kimi Raikkonen reincarnated as an Australian. He's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, so I really like watching him. Like watching him racing, and I like how he deals with everything outside of the cockpit as well. So yeah, my soft spot for him. And obviously, you know, I really like Lando as well as a fellow Brit, but I was a bit annoyed that Piastri was ahead of Lando, and they pitted Lando to try and cover off Hamilton first. So traditionally speaking, when you're prioritizing pit stops, you prioritize the driver that's ahead, so they can maintain the advantage. Like they've earned the right because they're ahead of their teammate, and they didn't. They pitted Lando. He got a massive advantage, got the undercut on his teammate, and came out ahead of him. And Piastri took it like an absolute champ. Like I'd have been really apocalyptically cross if that was me. And knowing that his manager is Mark Webber, who's previously been through similar issues with Red Bull when he was driving and racing Vettel, we talked about that on a previous episode. I wouldn't have been surprised if Webber was already on the phone to Zach Brown having a moan at the end of the race about that. But I don't think it would have mattered. As I say, Norris's race pace and his ability to manage the tyres was sort of much further ahead than Piastri is, but he's doing a great job. Piastri, I mean, it's going under the radar a little bit, but even before these upgrades, he was doing a really good job in a really slow car, and now he's obviously in a really pretty quick car and doing a fantastic job. Got a great start, had really good race pace, was ahead of Norris, but yeah, just seems to struggle a little bit on his tyres compared to Norris, but that'll come in time, I think. So yeah, I really think there's special talent in there. So yeah, lovely time for McLaren. Two good drivers, really quick car, keep picking up podiums, and yeah, the rate they're going, they could catch Ferrari and Aston Martin inside the next 8, 9, 10 races probably. But I reckon they'll get there before the end of the season if they carry on like this.
Yeah, I was going to say just on Piastri, amazing to sort of show your performance as a driver when your car's not doing very well to still be putting in good performances, and then when your car is doing really well unexpectedly, to still be, qualifying really well and then doing well in the race. And I feel like that first podium for him is going to come soon. It's it's been so close on 2 occasions now. So yeah, I think McLaren will be the surprise story of the season for how they've come out of nowhere, basically from where they started to really be basically. Where would you put them now? Second, third, fourth?
I think they're the second fastest car.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's great story for the sport, and it's interesting how it's kind of like as they've come to the top, Aston have shot back down. Yeah, I suppose on the topic of McLaren, we should talk to an ex-McLaren. We'll talk about an ex-McLaren employee, Mr. Daniel Ricciardo. We covered the brutal sacking of Nick de Vries in our last episode, and obviously this is the first weekend back for Danny racing for AlphaTauri. What did you make of his performance? Did he have a good weekend?
He did have a good weekend, yeah. I mean, he out-qualified Yuki, bearing in mind this is his first race in the car, never driven it before. He had a really good weekend, yeah. So out-qualified Yuki, had a good start, and then he got caught up in the Zhou Guanyu Alpine sandwich, unfortunately, so got taken out from 13th. So yeah, dropped right back down again, had some damage, and then worked his way back up and still finished above his teammate. Finished in 13th, I think, in the end. So yeah, it's a pretty good weekend. I think if Ricciardo can manage to do that regularly over the next little while, he'll pick up points, I think, over time.
Yeah.
I think AlphaTauri will they'll have to develop that car because it was painfully slow at times already this season. But yeah, no, I think he had a pretty solid weekend back. Really, I don't think I mean, it's never really going to be one of those weekends where he could absolutely shine. But all you can do is like beat your teammate, and I think he did that pretty comfortably in the end. He'll definitely be in the mix for some points at some point after the summer break. So yeah, pretty solid return. Really, he looked very driven, looked very happy to be back. Everyone looked very happy to have him. Lots of the drivers were very happy on the grid. I saw him and Lando travel together.
Oh, nice.
In some very nice private plane to Hungary, having a nice time. Yeah, no, it's good. It's good to have him back.
Yeah, I think they said. I think you're right. Like for him, that's probably as good as a weekend it can get at this sort of stage. You know, he didn't do anything crazy or didn't make any massive errors, and he just brought the car home well. And like you say, first of all, you got to beat your teammate, and he did that. And I think if I'm Christian Horner and Helmut Marko, and I'm looking at the decision to sack De Vries and bring in Ricciardo, probably already they think that it's justified it because they've got rid of De Vries, who was obviously struggling, and they've got someone that's proven in Formula One. But also, I think it just gives them such a good opportunity to assess Ricciardo ahead of Perez's sort of ongoing woes. So, yeah, no, good to see him back. He seemed very smiley, which is things we love to see. Such a good personality, and I can't wait for his return in Drive to Survive. I think that's going to be top tier the way that's handled. There's probably going to be a whole episode of that on his return, which would be good. Before we go to break, should we just quickly cover Ferrari again? Yeah. You said it at the start, sort of a classic sort of Ferrari weekend. Really, they made errors, annoyed the drivers. Yeah, just tell me your thoughts. What did you make of Ferrari's weekend?
So qualifying wasn't sparkling. I mean, I think Sainz was a bit unlucky, really. He got knocked out by like 13 hundredths of a second or something, unfortunately for him in Q2. But it's what the real frustration with them is that they sometimes make good decisions. So I actually think them starting Sainz on soft tyres was a great decision. Like, he got a really good jump at the start, made up a load of places, and was up running like 7th or 8th or something after the first lap from where he was. Like, that's a brilliant start. And then they totally go and like screw Sainz over by not swapping the cars over. Like, he clearly had the faster tyre. He was clearly going quicker than Charles. He could have easily got ahead of him and then gone and built a bit of a gap and got himself into contention for some more points. But Ferrari didn't swap the cars. It just baffled me at the time. And then, yeah, Charles Leclerc had a really slow pit stop, like 9.6 seconds or something. I mean, that in a race where like you're scrapping for every point, and the gaps between teams are less than 5 seconds. Like, what are you doing? Just so bad. And then Charles got done for speeding in the pit lane as well, and got a 5-second penalty. And the drivers weren't particularly happy all through the weekend. Sainz was basically making up his own strategy on the radio. It is just an absolute mess. Like, there's no the thing that came across for me when I was listening to Sainz particularly, and he has done this quite a bit anyway the last 18 months. But and more so probably than any other driver. But there's just no trust at all. It's almost like Ferrari want to go in one direction, and because they want to go in that direction, Sainz and Charles just decide no, they want to go in the opposite because they just assume they've made the wrong decision. Yeah, and there's just no trust at all. And obviously, when you have slow pit stops and stuff, it just doesn't help. So, yeah, it's not a happy camp at the moment, and it comes across every time you hear the drivers speak or whenever you hear them on the team radio. And yeah, I think the communication's not particularly good either between their sort of managers and the drivers and stuff. It's just, yeah, it's not a great place to be. And it's just, the problem is it's becoming a frequent event now, isn't it? Where like we have a discussion about a race weekend, Ferrari have done something meme-worthy yet again, and that narrative continues. And I think as long as that narrative continues, the drivers are going to be really pissed off. Ferrari fans are obviously really annoyed. They're not where they wanted to be in pace terms this season anyway. They wanted to be up challenging for the championship like they were last year for a bit. Yeah, it's just a pretty rubbish place, really. I think like I'd be worried about losing Charles, I think, if I was them at the moment. He's just desperately unhappy, and obviously seeing McLaren shoot right ahead of them, and they've basically spent the whole season behind at least 2, usually 3 teams. They're probably the 4th or 5th fastest car now on race pace. They qualify okay, but yeah, not good. And it's very track specific as well. I mean, I actually think they'll be all right next weekend, or next weekend after the summer break, I should say, at Spa. That's a track that will probably suit them, but there'll be loads more to come that just don't, and it'll be a real struggle. So, yeah, not a great weekend for Ferrari again, unfortunately. Yeah, it's a shame.
It is a real shame. And I think one thing we've never said the whole season is like, oh, the Ferrari upgrades have worked. I mean, there's been no, from my knowledge, there's been no Ferrari upgrade that's made a difference. And you think other teams seem to be improving or peaking, apart from Baku, which came as a real surprise. They've not really shown much promise at all across the whole season. The car, from last year being a championship contender and then not being a championship contender, but still in the top three. With this season, they've been nowhere near that conversation at all, and they just. I think you're right. I think there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes at Ferrari. There's obviously driving a lot of the unhappiness and the rift between the drivers and the strategy team and just the mechanics as well. And they almost kind of need a reset. And I'm surprised. I would love to know what Fred Vasseur is doing, because I'd be surprised if he's not trying to fix that. But this summer break for them could come at a really good time for them just to reset and just bring everyone together, try and look at the culture, try and look at what's going on, and just sort of, like say, pull in the right direction. And you're right. How many other teams do we see drivers making up their own strategy or openly disagreeing? Yeah. And the reason why they have to do it is because you're right. They've been burned so many times by just so many rogue strategy calls, and they also do this so many times where they have a driver that's quicker behind of their two drivers, and they fanny about and they don't like be decisive about being like, okay, I'll switch now, or the policy be like, you're free to race. They just go, ooh, hold position, all that, and it just like it makes no sense. And both drivers been on the end of it, and I would be like, this policy or this approach needs a review, because it seems like overly cautious, but for the wrong reasons. It's not benefiting either of them or the team as a whole.
Yeah.
It's
I think there's a whole cultural discussion we could probably have about Ferrari. I'm almost tempted to say let's have it in the next episode, because like we're going to plan a mid-season review, aren't we? We'll probably talk about Ferrari at length, but because I firmly believe there's a real cultural issue, I think, in the organisation that results in all of this. Because well, let's save it for another episode. But there's a bigger issue there, I think, than just they make a few errors and stuff here and there. I think it's a cultural problem, personally.
That's a good little teaser for our next episodes.
Yeah.
And with that, we'll take a quick break. Hello, welcome back from the break. Hope you had a jolly old time. We had a very jolly old time here, just catching up. And just Sam's camera has gone purple in honour of Lewis Hamilton, so we're enjoying the comedy that's brought to us.
I've entered goat mode.
You have gone into goat mode. I should just say, I was going to give my Latifi to Ferrari as an organisation just for the absolute mess of this weekend, and that helps us to come on to what we want to talk about now. Sam, who are you going to give your Latifi to? And this is a good sort of segment we've ended up building ourselves here, because I feel like I can leave you to talk now because this is going to go into quite a few areas because of your Latifi and what that means for the predictions game as well.
Strap in. There's another week where I have to rant about something irritating that's cost me a load of points in the predictions game. So my Latifi is going to Zhou Guanyu. I think it's the first time I've awarded him one this season. So Alfa Romeo came out of absolutely nowhere in qualifying. I mentioned it in the first half. They've developed the car, bought some upgrades. I mean, they've got Bottas, who's a bit of a qualifying demon anyway, but the fact that they got both him and Zhou Guanyu into the top 10 was a really amazing effort. And it looked like they were going to potentially pick up some points. Until Zhou Guanyu decided otherwise. So the reason I've given him the Latifi, it's not, I actually gave him the Latifi before I realised he'd cost me a load of points. But the reason I'm giving it to him is because I just think for those teams, and it's the same with Williams to some extent, I remember giving one to Albon for similar reasons earlier this season. For teams like them, there are only going to be maybe 3 opportunities to get good points over a race weekend between now and the end of the season at most, and probably over the course of a whole season, to be honest. Like, it's so competitive, the cars are bulletproof reliable these days. Like, the opportunity for teams like Williams and Alfa Romeo and AlphaTauri to pick up points is going to be really few and far between. So when you qualify 5th and your teammates in the top 10 as well, you're never going to get a better opportunity to earn some points. And so Zhou Guanyu stalled at the start, went into anti-stall, got away really poorly. I mean, it's just a pretty basic error. I mean, I know it's like we're really like nitpicking because this can happen to anybody, but like just don't let it happen to you when you're starting fifth and you can win some points for your team. Started really poorly and then absolutely sent it into turn one. Went full Valtteri Bottas, like pinball mode. Let's try, or not pinball, 10-pin bowling mode. Let's take out as many as possible. Drove into the back of Daniel Ricciardo, who had absolutely nowhere to go but into the 2 Alpines, who both got taken out, which I'll talk about in a moment because it's both funny and painful at the same time. And yeah, it just totally cost him the race. And literally within a lap, they went from like 5th and 10th to like 12th and 17th or something. And it was just like, you've just killed your whole weekend in the space of 20 seconds. And having worked so hard to get into that position where you could earn some points, just really, really poor. So yeah, as soon as it happened, I was like, you just can't do that. Like, he seems like a really nice guy, and he's a good driver, Zhou Guanyu, and he's been really good. He was really good like back end of last season, and there's definitely a lot of promise there. But it's errors like that really mark against you. I think like you've got to make the most of those opportunities when you're a kind of young driver driving for a slowish team, and he obviously didn't. So yeah, I don't think it's like career defining or anything like it. He's got a long career ahead of him, I'm sure, but certainly for the rest of the season, that will haunt Alpha, I think, to some extent, because there won't be many tracks where they do as well as they have done this weekend, because their car is largely based on the Ferrari, and as we know, that doesn't have great race pace already, and they're naturally slower because they're a customer team, etc., etc., etc. So yeah, it's not going to happen again, realistically. I don't think. It just felt like a massive missed opportunity, which brings me on to Alpine. Now, I had Esteban Ocon in the predictions game. I didn't realize this at the time because I was extremely hungover, and I was more focused on the fact that Zhou Guanyu had just ruined his opportunity for any points, which annoyed me. But anyway, Ocon, got yeeted into Pierre Gasly, totally destroyed both cars. The entire Alpine weekend was ruined in about 20 seconds at the start of the race. I should imagine they were absolutely fuming. They weren't massively quick, I don't think. Like, I mean, maybe Ocon's pushing for a top 10, but I'm not confident they'd have got there. I think you're probably looking more likely sort of just outside the top 10, 11th, down to 14th, somewhere in there. But again, like, any opportunity for points was taken away from them because of Zhou Guanyu playing duck pin bowling into turn one. So yeah, I feel a bit bad for Alpine, but I did have a little chuckle. I don't know why. I don't have anything against Alpine. I definitely don't have anything against Renault. I quite like Esteban Ocon as a driver, and I'd like to see him do well. But the fact that they both just got smashed into each other and taken out inside 20 seconds, I did have a little chuckle, and then I felt guilty for it afterwards. And then I felt really bad when I realised I had Ocon in the predictions game. So yeah, all of that is a long way of saying Zhou Guanyu cost his team, shame on him, yada yada yada. And he's got my Latifi for this week.
Very good, very good. Do you want to know something interesting about Alpine? Is their second consecutive double DNF, which is obviously quite a rare thing for both drivers to be out in 2 consecutive races.
Yeah.
And like I say, it's probably cost them quite a lot of points. And
they had it in Australia as well, remember?
Yeah. They've had a really weird season, and we're going to do like a season review, mid-season review next week, and I think that'll be one of the most interesting teams to sort of look at and talk about because they've had such a weird season, and like you say, they've been on the end of a lot of double DNFs or not the crazy stuff as well. But yeah, I enjoyed that. That was a good little good segmented rant. So you alluded to that Esteban Ocon has caused you great harm in this, and well, Zhou has caused you a lot of harm with what he did to Ocon.
Yeah.
How are the prediction results looking?
Well, not great now, Will. I'll be honest. I mean, I closed up a little bit, and then you won last week, and you've won again this week. There's no secret there.
Hey.
Well done. But yeah, I mean, I'm just like, I don't know what I've done to anger Formula One gods, but like I've looked at the last 4 rounds, and some of the stuff that's happened, like some of the stuff you remember, like with Stroll and Alonso, and then a load of other like randomness that just totally like ruined. Like, and all of the track limit stuff in Austria cost me 6 point swing or something stupid as well. And I look back and I was like, I don't know how many I've lost the last 3 weeks from all this like garbage nonsense, but there we go.
That's Formula One for you.
I know. Well, I mean, at least it's only halfway, and it's not the end of the world. I'm still. It's not. The gap is not so big that I'm just like, resigned myself to.
It's not as big as the gap between Red Bull and everyone else.
Well, no. I mean, exactly that. The season's over, isn't it? Let's face it. All right. So you had Logan Sargent you predicted him to finish in 14th, and he retired, unfortunately for him, in 18th. So because everyone else crashed before him, he gets to 18th. So you picked up 4 points there.
Okay.
Then you had Kevin Magnussen. This was a very good prediction. You had him finishing 15th, and he finished in 17th. So you picked up 2 there. And then you had Max Verstappen, P1, 0 points. Exactly. Well played. So you had 6 there. Now, everything apart from Ocon for my weekend was pretty dandy, really. So I had Checo. I predicted him to finish 4th. He finished 3rd, so I picked up 1 point. I had Sainz. Predicted him to finish in 6th. He finished in 8th, so I picked up 2 points. And then Ocon, I had him finishing 9th, and he retired. An official classification says 19th, so I picked up 10 points. So for 13. So yeah, I mean, so annoying. Very
it was going so well until Ocon as well. It was such a good victory as well, and it's just all gone wrong with him.
Yeah, disastrous. But never mind. So yeah, I picked up. So I had a total of 13 in the end. 10 of which was a Ocon contribution. So thanks to him. Well, not thanks to him. Thanks to Zhou Guanyu. So yeah, the gap is, I think it's about 20 now. So pretty extensive. So I'm looking now very much for a kind of Max Verstappen predicted to finish first, and he has a DNF at the start. Kind of territory to try and make up some points, but hey ho, what can you do? At some point, the gods will favour my my predictions.
Yeah, well, we've still got 11 races to go, so it could all change.
Absolutely. Well, and the thing is as well, like we only started the predictions game in Baku, so we've only had 8 rounds of the game. We haven't actually had 11, so we're not even halfway through
the predictions game.
Yeah, we're just halfway through the season, so yeah, plenty of time.
And I reckon if you look back, I think I've had Max quite a few more times than you have, so that's a bit of an unfair advantage as well, because of the dominance of Max.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because guess who got Max Verstappen this week?
You did?
I did. Yes,
very good. Very good. I'm actually happy for you, because I feel like you deserve that.
Thanks, mate. No, well, yeah, you say that, but watch him bin the car at Eau Rouge or something and like finish last. I just have every time I get a high performing car, I think,
Here we can't. You've written the script for it now.
Yeah, so I'll do mine then. So I got Max, and I've boringly obviously predicted him to finish in first. I got Carlos Sainz. Which is another Sainz again, really tricky. I think he's quite a tricky one to pick. Now, I went 6th last time. I actually think the Ferrari is going to be quite good in Spa. It's kind of low drag, high speed, not too hard on the tyres type circuit. So I'm going to go 6th again and hope he delivers this time. I still think they'll be behind the Red Bulls and McLarens, but I think they'll be all right. And then I got Logan Sargent.
Wow.
Yeah, who you got this week, just gone. So. He was number 19, but I think Williams might be quite good in Spa. Low drag again.
Yeah, fast on the straights.
I could see Albon maybe picking up a point, but I don't think Sargent will. I'll go 14th.
Nice.
14th for Sargent. Okay, so you got my new favourite driver, number 11, Oscar Piastri.
Ooh, I reckon he's going to get 5th.
Okay. Who do you think is going to beat him out of interest? Who's your 4 ahead of him?
Perez. Maybe George and Lewis. Or Lando.
And then Max, yeah. Okay.
Max, yeah.
All right. Speaking of his royal goatedness, number 4, Lewis Hamilton.
I'm going to go 3rd.
Yeah, that's probably a good bet. Okay. And then you got number 13, Alex Albon.
I'm going to go... I agree with you. I think he could have a really good weekend, especially with that car and that circuit. I reckon he's going to go 8th.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking maybe 10th, but yeah, 8th is...
I'll back him.
Yeah, no, I fancy Williams to pick up a point at least, actually, in Spa.
Yeah, well, we've got quite a while to wait now, haven't we? We've got is it 4 weeks, 5 weeks till Spa?
So you're right. Yeah, 5. I think it's 5. Is it 5 or 6 weeks this year?
I've got
Spa is 28th of July. 5 weeks.
20th, you mean 28th? Hang on, Spa's next weekend.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're right.
Because usually
the gap's after Spa.
Yeah, because usually Hungary is the last one before the summer break. Oh, well, there you go. That's been a fun thing for us. And we have a sprint race as well next weekend in Spa. So,
does that change it? No, does that change? No, it doesn't change anything. No, does it? But that's cool. Okay, I thought we had.
Me too.
A gap before Spa, but no, clearly one after. So there you go. Massive in-depth Formula One fans here.
There we go. And then there's actually only 3 weeks off with no Formula One. So, yeah. Oh, that's good. Because usually Hungary is usually always the last race before the summer break. And then we have like a 5-6 weeks of no racing at all, whereas it seems like with how mad the calendar is this season and probably going forward, the summer break has been squashed. And also we did have that weird summer break or mid-season break at the start of the season when Imola got cancelled and we didn't have like a race for nearly a month as well.
Yeah.
That's something exciting for Spa next weekend then, especially, I mean, we're intrigued to see what the sprint race round Spa is. It's literally going to be like 3 laps because the lap is so long. So
yes,
yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah, it will be good. That will be exciting. I'm quite interested to see. I don't know I should have looked at the forecast for Belgium, shouldn't I? That was the forecast for Spa like next weekend, but I feel like it always rains there, and it just makes it very dangerous, isn't it? And we've seen some pretty unfortunate things happen there recent times. So
it'll either be a really good like race with like the weather's sunny and is this amazing racing and some really good sort of, I think it could be one of the best races of the season, or it could just be torrential rain and not much really happens, because we've seen that quite frequently recently.
I think we'll see Red Bull dominate, and then the fight between McLaren and Ferrari and Mercedes be really interesting. Yeah, that'll be my prediction. Like, and I think I could see both Astons not picking up points.
Ooh, I mean, it's good job that's not in the prediction game.
Yeah,
I like that. We'll have to. You might have prophesized that, so
we'll see.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cheered me up. No, we don't have to wait like 5 weeks for another Formula One race. We've only got to wait another week for Spa. So very good.
Look forward to that. Right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the podcast. Thanks very much for joining us. Remember to subscribe and leave a review on your podcast platform of choice. If you enjoyed it, why don't you share it with a friend? Hopefully they enjoy it more than the entire Alpine team enjoyed schlepping all the way to Hungary with all their car kit, all the drivers, all their staff, and then having both cars yeeted out within 20 seconds of the green light. Follow us on Twitter at LightsOutLads, and on Instagram we are at the Lights Out Pod. Will, next week we have Spa. Surprise.
Yeah, which is a surprise to both of us, which is quite funny because usually we are so on it with the calendar. But which, like I said, it should be a good one. And then as we sort of tease throughout the episode, we'll do our sort of mid-season review the week after when we've got to the summer break, and we'll be past the halfway point, but still a good opportunity. So we'll just take stock, and I don't think we'll go through team by team, but we'll just look through some of the key talking points of the season and just do a bit of deep dive in a couple of areas. We've alluded to Ferrari, but for that we've got a race next weekend, and so maybe Ferrari could turn up next weekend and have a race-winning car, and they might have fixed their strategy issues. They probably haven't. It should be good. I like Spa. It's a great, massive long circuit, very hilly. Good weather sometimes bad weather. Good atmosphere as well. I think it's a lot of Formula One fans' favourite track, isn't it? I think it's one of yours. It's up there for you, yeah. So, and I think their contract is at the moment it's been renewed like once, like only like another year or two. So I think they kind of need a big race to sort of justify to Formula One why they deserve to stay on the calendar. But we shall see. Another good race to look forward to, and hopefully someone else that's not Red Bull can win. Fingers crossed.
Let's hope.
Right, that's all from us. All the best and goodbye.
Bye.